You know those upbeat and danceable songs, but if you listen closely, you'll see that the lyrics tell a tragic story? The song Rehab by Amy Winehouse is one of those. Today, we're going to reveal how the lyrics of the song expose a cry for help from one of the greatest singers this world has ever known, who was quickly heading toward death. I'm Guilherme, and you're on the Dessa for Hits channel.
Make me go to rehab. I said no, no, no.
In the song Rehab, Amy Winehouse mocks those who tried to help her and says she doesn't need to go to rehab to treat her addictions, basically ignoring the advice that could have saved her life. To understand the lyrics of Rehab and how such a brilliant singer went from the top to rock bottom, we can start by analyzing her troubled childhood. Born on September 14, 1983 in London, Amy Jade Winehouse had a childhood marked by the absence of her father, Mitchell, who spent more time with his mistress than at home. When Amy was 9 years old, her parents got divorced, which had a significant impact on Amy's mental health. She was extremely attached to her father and always sought his approval in everything she did, even after becoming an adult. These events likely contributed to her developing borderline personality disorder, which causes symptoms such as mood instability, a tendency towards self-destructive behaviors, and a tendency to have obsessive relationships. Keep this information in mind because it's essential for you to understand what really happened to Amy. By the age of 14, she was already taking antidepressants. By the age of 15, she was already involved with drugs and developed bulimia, which is a very serious eating disorder where a person forces themselves to vomit after every meal to lose weight, which can lead to death. But unfortunately, her parents ignored it and thought it was just a phase. For Amy, music was the only place where she found comfort. But she never dreamed of or even wanted to be famous. She sang only as a form of self-expression and to vent her feelings. Amy grew up studying in theater schools, but she didn't do very well in the theoretical classes and even got expelled. Amy preferred the practical music classes where she always stood out in performances. So much so that she ended up being selected for the National Youth Jazz Orchestra, where she improved even more. The young Amy started performing in bars and small jazz clubs, showcasing a voice with an unmistakable tone. And in a short time, she ended up being discovered by talent scouts from a record label called 19 Entertainment, with which she signed her first music contract. The contract paid her €250 a week, which was good, but still not enough. So, to pay the bills, she even worked as a journalist at a small news agency, and also in a tattoo and piercing studio. But everything started to change when her friend Tyler James sent a demo of an Amy song to a talent scout at the record label Island Records. The record label was impressed with Amy's voice, and she was invited to an audition where she left everyone amazed. With the new contract, she got enough money to buy her first apartment and dedicate herself entirely to music. Then starting to work on her first album, Frank, which was released in 2003. With songs like Stronger Than Me, the album featured an impeccable mix of soul, jazz, rhythm, and blues, and bringing back an incredible sound not heard since the 1930s and 1940s. The album was acclaimed by critics and the public, and it stirred up the greed of the media and record labels, who began trying to exploit Amy's talent to produce more albums and make more money at any cost. If you're enjoying the video so far, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you can watch more videos like this. With the pressure from the music industry, Amy suffered from creative block and stayed away from the studios for 18 months. Her drug and alcohol abuse soon increased. And to make things worse, it was during this time that she met someone who would drag her down an even darker and more fatal path. We're talking about Blake Fielder Civil, a video assistant whom Amy fell for compulsively, and who introduced her to much harder drugs than she had ever used before: crack, cocaine, and heroin. However, Blake already had a girlfriend and ended up leaving Amy to go back to his original relationship. This affected Amy so deeply that she started drinking compulsively to forget Blake and ended up losing a lot of weight. In fact, one of her most famous songs, Back to Black, is an outpouring about this breakup. Due to her addictions and disorders, Amy started having several breakdowns. She started hitting paparazzi and often performed at shows completely drunk and high, to the point of collapsing on stage, missing and abandoning several performances. One of the first to notice that something was wrong with Amy was her friend and former manager, Nick Shimonsky, who tried to convince the singer to seek treatment at a rehab clinic. It was valuable advice, but unfortunately she didn't want to accept it, and she made sure to make that clear through a song. And that's how the song Rehab came about, the first single from her second album, Back to Black, released in 2006. Just like in the title and in the other songs on the album, Amy uses the word black to symbolize depression. She always believed she could get out of it on her own, without anyone's help. In other words, she believed that her tears would dry on their own, an expression that is even the title of another one of her songs and that she also uses in Rehab. Another person who unfortunately shared this same way of thinking was her own father, Mitchell Winehouse. When Nick suggested that she seek rehabilitation, Amy replied by saying that she would only go if her father thought she needed it.
I ain't got the time, and if my daddy thinks I'm fine.
In an interview, Amy said the following: "I asked my father if he thought I should go to rehab. He said no, but that maybe I should give it a try. That's what I did, but only for 15 minutes. I went in, said hi, and explained that I drink because I'm in love and because I messed up my relationship, and then I left." She also recounts this dialogue in the second verse of the song, when she says, "The guy asked, 'Why do you think you're here?' And I said, 'I have no idea. I'm going to lose the one I love. And that's why I always keep a bottle nearby.'" This part also expresses one of the typical characteristics of borderline personality disorder that Amy suffered from, since people with this disorder tend to adapt their habits to those of their partners, even if they are destructive habits, as was the case with Amy's relationship with Blake, which was based on drugs and alcohol. So, in Amy's mind, if she quit her addiction, she would be abandoned by Blake, who, by the way, after several breakups and reconciliations, had gotten back together and married Amy. Besides that, Amy believed that her real problem wasn't the addiction, which in her opinion was temporary. For her, the key to everything was depression, an illness that had been with her since her teenage years and that, in her view, led her to turn to alcohol and drugs to cope with everything she was going through at that point in her life. She also expresses this thought in "We Have," in the part that continues the conversation that took place at the clinic.
He said, "I just think you're depressed. Diss me, yeah, baby, and the rest."
And because she didn't see chemical dependency as something that needed attention, she says in the song that she won't waste her time in rehab.
I gained about 70 days.
The duration of treatment for chemical dependency varies from case to case and takes several factors into account. But it usually takes between 30 to 60 days in moderate cases and more than that in severe cases. Amy thought that 70 days was how long she needed to detox and that she could recover at home, a thought that would end up costing her life.
I'd rather be at home with Ray.
It's a reference to Ray Charles, one of the greatest blues and jazz singers in history. Amy meant that music would be a better therapy for her than rehab, and she reinforces this thought by mentioning another great American jazz singer, Donny Hathaway, in the lyrics.
There's nothing you can teach me that I can't learn from Mr. Hathaway.
It's very common for people in situations like hers to go through a state of denial, believing they don't need help. At that moment, fans, family, friends, and those close to Amy should have played a very important role in bringing her back to reality. Despite the content of this song, Amy ended up agreeing to go to rehab, but it wasn't very effective because at the clinic, Blake made it easier for Amy to access heroin and other drugs, and she ended up abandoning the treatment several times. The song Rehab established Amy Winehouse as an international star and earned her the Grammy for Best Female Vocal Performance and Song of the Year in 2008, which was incredible since the song was competing with major hits like Irreplaceable by Beyoncé, Umbrella by Rihanna and Jay-Z, and What Goes Around, Comes Around by Justin Timberlake. However, at the same time that Amy's career was taking off, her life and her mental and physical health were deteriorating. In June 2008, the singer collapsed at her home with shortness of breath and was rushed to the hospital. She was diagnosed with pulmonary emphysema, a degenerative disease that she had contracted from smoking a lot of hard drugs. The doctors warned that if she didn't treat her addiction, she would end up losing her ability to sing, or even worse, losing her own life. In 2011, Amy wanted to start a new musical project and didn't want to sing anymore. The songs from her previous album, Back to Black. But with all the fame and pressure from the media and fans, she was constantly being taken to do shows and tours even against her own will. To try to avoid the shows, she would drink until she passed out and would even be carried in someone's arms, put in the car, and taken to the jet. And when she woke up, she was already in another country, finding out she had to perform for thousands of people. Her last show was in Belgrade, Serbia, in June 2011, where she was clearly performing against her will, totally uncomfortable and debilitated, which made her forget the lyrics to the songs during almost the entire show. Get booed by nearly 20,000 people and practically cry in front of the audience. After the event, Amy Winehouse canceled her tours and gave herself over to drinking for good. And on July 23, 2011 at 11 a.m., her security guard Andrew Morris went to wake Amy in her room. He tried to wake her up, but he couldn't, believing it was just deep sleep after a night of drinking. As usual, he left the room to come back later. At 3 p.m., he returned to the room and tried again to wake her up, but noticed something was wrong as she was in the same position, not breathing, and had no pulse. Andrew called emergency services. Within minutes, 2 ambulances arrived at the scene, but it was already too late. Amy Winehouse died at the age of 27, joining the tragic 27 Club. Just like Kurt Cobain, Janis Joplin, and other great artists who passed away at the same age. The cause of death was reported as alcohol poisoning, since she had consumed a dose 5 times higher than the legal limit for driving. In addition, 2 empty bottles of vodka were found next to her body. Despite that, people close to her, such as her brother Alex Winehouse, have already said they believe her bulimia and poor health played a significant role in her death, and that if she had been in good health, the alcohol wouldn't have killed her. The fact is that Amy Winehouse shaped music in a way that few artists have managed to do, and she left a legacy and a voice that will live on forever. If you enjoy our videos, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any musical analysis. I'll wrap up here. Thank you very much for staying with us, and see you next time.